Ready. Hello everyone, my name is Miku, and I'm the audio generalist for SacriFire. It's a lovely upcoming JRPG inspired game, but less about that and more about what I want to share with you. So, I've seen many great sound design breakdown videos, and what I noticed is that most of them are really isolated. That is, that they lack the context of a game that they would appear in. I'm talking the music, the ambience, other sound in the game that it has to work well with. And also, there are many different obstacles that you will meet while making a sound asset for a video game. That is, animations. You have to, while implementing the sound, you have to attach it to something. So it, like, for example, it's kind of, sometimes it would be hard to do like a pre ring out of a hit impact sound because the VFX of the attack actually like exploding or something starts on the explosion, not before it. So that's something you have to take into consideration. So I would like to do a simple sound redesign, but do it in the way that I personally actually do it every day that I work on my game, making sounds. So what I prefer, if that's possible, is that if you have a working, playable game, to launch a scenario in which the sound would occur naturally. That is, launch the game and perhaps play through the game until you meet that point, or just launch it through the editor, but like make the scene be the same that where it can happen. Have music playing, the same one that would be normally playing, or any kind of music really, so that you can base the decisions you make while making a sound in the context of the grander scheme of things, so that it plays well in the mix, that it's not too loud or not too quiet, that there are certain frequencies that need to be boosted or reduced. So let's say we have to make sound for an attack animation. Enemy, player, be it whatever. First thing I would do is launch the game, launch the scenario, and record it. So that's what we will do right now. Let's use Clair Obscure as an example. And let's go into settings, look at sound, and let's lower the combat special effects to 0. So that way we won't have the actual sounds playing. But notice that we still have the music. Okay, so we set it up as if it were in our game. We have music, we have ambience, we have UI sounds, but we don't have the enemy attack still. So now let's basically record the attacks of our characters and the enemies. Later on we will pick which one we want to make sound for. So let's do this. Ready. Okay, so now that we have our gameplay recording, we don't put it straight in here. It's because we recorded that as an MP4 in OBS. So it's a compressed file, meaning that our processor has to work extra hard to play it back for us. So when you put that video in here and then do a lot of different plugins, some that are heavily CPU bound, what happens is that the video playback begins to be slower. So you tend to lose synchronization between sound and video. So we want to make sure that every playback will be the same regardless of the amount of CPU usage that we have. So what I do now is that I bring the video to Davinci Resolve and convert it to a codec that is basically uncompressed, that has the least CPU usage necessary to play the video back. I've done somewhat extensive personal research on this, I tried different settings and looked at the CPU usage, and this is what I found to work best for me, at least. So let's launch Davinci Resolve. Okay, we're in Davinci. You want to go to this Edit tab. Now let's put in our recording. Okay, so now that we're in here with our recording, let's say we want to make sound for this fire attack of this character. I would find a place few frames before it happens to have like a pre-roll. Okay, let's say it's here. We can cut all of this out and then let's see when it finishes.
Ready.
This is when we will end because we're not doing anything after that. Let's say that in this particular scenario, we're just making sound for this character and her fire attack. So now that we have this small part here of only our animation, let's go to the Deliver tab. In format, let's keep QuickTime, but we want to change the codec from H.264, which is the compressed one, into DNX HD. And then in the type, let's take 1080p 36 8-bit. We want to name the file. I personally just click the same file that we have used here and just add DNXHD at the end, like this. It's just the name of the file, the same file that we used, underscore DNHXD. We have the time selection here. We can see that it fits the clip. So we now add the render queue and then render all. Now we can close this, don't save, and go back to Reaper. Okay, so we're back in Reaper, but we don't import the file just yet. First of all, we want to make sure that every file that we put into the project gets copied. It is somewhat space consuming, so keep that in mind. But for me, it's very important because you know that every file that you put in will be copied. So you will not be changing, for example, permanently changing the file that you used. Or when you make a different copy of a project that you are working on, for example, you work at home and you want to take the project to your job, or you want to send it to someone else, or when you make recordings to use as a basis of your sound design and they're in a separate folder and then you delete them because for whatever reason and you want to go back and then there's just a file missing. So you want to copy every single file you put into, at least I want to copy every single file that I put into a project. And to do that, we need to go to Options, Preferences, Media, and Import. And this here, copy imported media to project media directory. Also copy media when pasting items into project is what we want to have selected. So let's check our project settings. Media, path to save media files. I named it project files. And on import of media to project, use global preference. Okay, now we are sure that everything we put in the project will be copied. So let's put in our gameplay recording. Okay, so we imported our video recording. Let's open the preview. I have it on my second monitor, but I will use it in my main screen for now. Let's pin this so it doesn't... Actually, no, let's leave it floating. We can put it in the corner here. Actually, I think it's better to have it floating because in Reaper, when you dock it, it like takes up your whole space here. This is just tidier, nicer. So, before starting, we need to place markers. Markers are very important because they tell you when an animation starts. And when you're doing linear sound design, it doesn't really matter when an animation starts or stops because you're not bound to anything in particular. You're just making linear sound. But in video games, we only want the sound to play when we start attacking. And that is most likely determined by an animation. So we want to find the very first frame of an attack animation of our character. This is selecting like a UI selection sound that we already have in the game. Another sound to make sure who we want to attack. Okay, and now the very first frame that we jump from here to this is our first frame of an attack animation. So to find the actual frame, you can do it like this on the timeline, or there's a special script that I love that you can go through all of the frames, only frames, equal frames, with your mouse wheel. It's incredibly convenient, actually. I use it all the time. So here, this is the frame where we change. This is the first frame of the attack. I have two shortcuts for placing markers. One is just a straight up marker with no name. Second one is with an Insta naming option. I use it sometimes, but not in this case because we know what we're doing. So let's just place a marker. We know that this is the first frame of an animation. If you do like a longer piece, or like, I don't know, if you're working on a trailer for your game when there's a lot more material to go through, you can name the markers so that remember what they're for. But we know what we're doing now. We're doing the attack animation, so we don't need a name. We know that this is the first frame of the attack. Let's see what happens next. We have this QTE. And right here is like some purple energy coming from her arms. So let's make another marker here, because this is like a signal that something starts happening. We have the flame here too. And we have the build up to like... Okay, and we have damage on this frame. You can see the damage being applied on this frame. So this is very important because that's kind of where we want the impact to be. So we have the start, the flames appearing from here. All of this will be a build-up that will release here with an explosion. And that's it. So we have 3 main parts. Okay, so we have these 3 markers here, the 3 main parts of the animation. Let's hear how it sounds like. Ready. I think it's a bit too loud for the preview here. I'm gonna lower it just a bit. We don't need to have and keep the same loudness here because you can always mix the sound loudness in the middleware after we implement it. Okay, we have made our markers here. We know what we're working with. So now let's go to the sound designing part. We won't be recording any sounds this time, but you might as well do that. You can record a lot of household objects that would be useful. You can make like a personal small library to use sounds, which I do a lot, but this time we will not do it because, you know, I'm showing something else. We will be using sounds from libraries. And for that, we need a sound library browser. I personally use Soundly. I find it very convenient, and it also is a sound library in itself. Right here, you can see all the cloud libraries you have and your personal ones. So we can look for anything. Let's see what we need here, what might be useful. So let's say that there should be like a whoosh here as she's waving her arms through the air. And then we have this magic flame burst. Let's look for a whoosh for starters. This could be useful. This will work too. This too, actually. Okay, so we have these 3 files. for our first part. I like to line them up. That somewhat makes sense because the startup is here and we have our character waving her hands around here. So let's move it even like this. That should be fine. I like to cut out the rest of the files. For that, I have a special script that I have on one button of my keyboard that cuts everything to the right of my cursor. I don't even have to press in. I just like literally what is below my cursor gets cut off. I have a second button for everything to the left. So if I want to cut this here, for example, the shortcut is my custom one. Because I worked on Pro Tools previously, I have a lot of custom Pro Tools adjacent shortcuts. Edit action. So this is just move, edit, view, move, edit cursor to mouse cursor, item, select item under mouse cursor, edit item, edit, trim left edge of item to edit cursor, item, unselect, clear selection of all items. We want to consolidate undo points, so we can just press undo once. Okay, and now let's see how they sound like. Also, I then select the sounds that I've imported and have a script for normalizing media items. And I always do it to -23 LUFS because that's the somewhat standard. When you do this, it will basically always be okay, and then you can adjust it later. So let's see how it sounds like with each one of these sounds. Okay, I would say that the first one does not work at all, so I will delete it. And now what I've done is use my gestures, custom gestures on my M mouse, which is MX3 Master. It's a mouse done by Logitech. Let me pull this up. It's this mouse right here. When you have the app for the mouse, you have all the buttons here, and every one of these buttons can be turned into a gestures button. And you can have different custom gestures for every application that you use. Let's go for Reaper. So we can go into every one of these buttons, pick other actions, gestures, and then select custom. And then we can literally attach any kind of key combination shortcut that we want to a gesture. So now I held this button and moved my mouse to the right to press delete on the keyboard basically, and then pressed it and moved my mouse to the left to enter. That way I deleted the file without needing to move my hand anywhere. So this mouse is incredibly convenient for work, I have to admit, but also I have to give out a warning. I'm not the biggest fan of it, like the ergonomics, and also it's incredibly laggy for me often. It's unacceptable. And also the DPI is super low. It's like 120. It feels, when you have a 1000 hertz polling mouse, like a gaming mouse, next to this, and you have a high refresh rate monitor, there's a huge difference in basically smoothness of your mouse movements. It's like you were playing at 60 hertz. So you have to take that into consideration. But if you just use it for work, I feel like it's good enough, and it's amazing with the gestures for productivity. Okay, so I have a custom action here to enable and disable the grid, because sometimes I want to move the effects right to the frame of a marker, but sometimes I just want to time them freely. So let's get rid of that and pick a suitable timing for this effect. Let's say this is cool, but we want the sound, it's a bit too high in pitch. We want to lower it down. So by holding Alt, I can time stretch it like this. Still too much. I will cut off the right part and stretch it out a bit more. Too much. Let's go to -6 semitones. One more thing. By default, when you stretch it out, it will probably most likely try to stay in its original pitch. You have to uncheck this box here, but I made it so that it's by default like that. I also have a shortcut for this, one button, because sometimes you might want to leave the pitch on. Let's see how that sounds like. Yeah, it turns to like a more grainy digital sound, which we don't want here. I kind of don't like how the sound is very wide in stereo image, so let's bring it down. And to use that, I click on my track and then do this. This is a radial menu. It's an amazing script, custom script for Reaper, and it's free, and I am like a biggest fan of it, really. I absolutely adore it. You can fully customize it to do whatever you want. You can add any action in Reaper to this, any kind of action you want. Like right here, I have a freeze and mute and freeze and unmute track action. I have all my plugins here. I have extend regions. I have render tracks for 2-channel or 1-channel, and automation in which I can turn on different automation modes. Let's go into the plugins, and I will use Boom Recenter. Okay, this already brought the most of the sound that is necessary to the center, but it's a bit harsh. So let's add a ProQ. And what you've seen just now is also another custom script for adding literally just ProQ free to any track or item for that matter. But let's undo that. So I use ProQ free like almost always on anything. So I use it so often that I made just a single button dedicated to it. It's also on my mouse. It's also a custom gesture. Hold on, let's see what it was. So I'm not sure if I can find it like that. Alt Control Shift J. You can see the action of the shortcut is Control Alt Shift and J, just to put a ProQ free. So obviously no one will be doing that with their hand. That's why I have the gestures on my mouse for. I made it into a singular button press. I can just spam it like this. Okay, let's go back to designing though. Right, let's hear the first sound again. Another custom action is just placing a fade on my cursor position, left and right as well. Let's add some saturation to this. My favorite one, Decapitator, it's amazing. Together. We need something more tonal, like lower tonal. Actually, I like this. I press S here, shortcut to import stuff. The sound is a bit too aggressive, so let's limit it with RIA limiter. What if I put a pitch delay on this? That will work well, I think. Maybe too much. Going into the build-up phase here, I think that might work well. Let's combine all of these sounds into a single folder. That's another custom action I've made. It lets you create a folder from the selected tracks, and you can instantly name it to whatever you want. Let's say it's a whoosh. Let's call this first part a whoosh. Now we can use a multiband, for example, on all of these tracks simultaneously, so that it's more balanced. What if I try frequency shifting this whoosh though? I really recommend the Melda free bundle as well as kilohertz. It's amazing. Use it all the time. Actually, what if we pitched this up in time while the sound effect is going on? Right here, what I've done is added stretch marks to an item, also a shortcut. It's a, let's see, Shift plus W for me, add stretch marker at cursor. So let's stretch it up, see how it sounds like. Also, when you have markers and they're like from 1 to 10, you by default can press 1, 2, and 3 and etc. on your keyboard, and you will immediately move to the marker. Okay, that's pretty cool. Maybe a bit too fast. Whenever you build an effect up, when you have sound rising in pitch, it always works well. Let's have the fade out here also be the same in pitch. It can go down here. It won't be really audible with all the other stuff. What if you put some more saturation on this? Lower it in volume. By the way, I really recommend adjusting values like this volume here with your mouse wheel. It's way more tactile feeling than just moving your mouse, I feel like. You can be more precise and it's just easier. You don't have to move your whole mouse. What if we added some, let's say, flanger to this? Since it's a flame spell, flames almost always have flanger on them. We don't want the spread to be a bit too far apart. Let's keep it like this, a low mix. That's fine. Okay, so now that we have made this first part, the whoosh / start part of the animation, we are going into the build-up phase. And we see that it starts right here. And considering this very fast movement of the character that like stops here and releases the magic flames energy, we definitely need to accentuate this, so we will need a small impact sound, but not a big one, since that will come right here. But we need to just accentuate it, like I said. Let's look for flame sounds now, then, shall we? Let's just type flame, let's see what comes up. Let's do maybe flame design. By the way, I recommend to everyone downloading the GDC game audio packs because they're free and there's a lot of good sounds in here. I would say the only minus is that most of them are just single sound effects that you can't really do many variations with. This one has two, but they're like completely different sounds, so yeah, that will not work exactly, but for this example, let's say that it will work. This too. Let's use this as well. Let's see how they sound like. Start with the first one. Maybe mute this. And I think these start too early. Maybe this is okay. This like that and like this. I have a custom action here that when you press and hold Control and Windows key for me, then you can adjust the shape of the fade in or fade out of an item. That's extremely helpful. Now that I think about it, here's the explosion. So we want the build-up to rise, but we want a moment of silence between the actual build-up and the actual explosion. So let's make sure it ends before. Okay, let's see the next one. This is just noise. Okay, that's nice. It's a bit too... I mean, look at this wave. But such big waves tend to mean that there's a lot of bass in here. That's not necessary at all. Let's see. Yeah, look, I mean, I have by default, I have an enabled low cut filter on 6 dB on 10 Hertz, and it's already cutting something off. So that's definitely too much bass. We don't need this because like maybe that's not audible, but when we use compression, like not size compression in terms of the file, but dynamics, like Pro C, for example, it will pass the threshold like easier, sooner than we need. So let's get rid of that bass. I think that's okay. Oops, I deleted it. By the way, when you hover your mouse over a filter and you use your mouse wheel, you can change the quality of the filter. But let's keep it at 24 here. It's a bit too high-end heavy. And let's add some saturation. Since it's more of a magic flame, let's see how some modulators work here. Let's say chorus. Oh, that's nice. That was nice. Honestly, let's keep it at 100. It sounds good. The only problem is that this is a time-based effect. As you can see, there's a rate here, 60 Hertz. The problem with that is it starts whenever we press play. So right now, I have our edit cursor on the very start of the sample. So it sounds like this. But if we will have our sound start from this, it will sound like this then. It's a bit different. It doesn't sound as good here, honestly. To combat this, we can use a global sampler, which is an amazing, it's literally game-changing, also free script for Reaper that sits on your monitoring effects bus, I guess, and it records every single thing you hear through Reaper. So when we play back this sound, having the effect from chorus that we like, it showed up here. We can select it and drag it down to a track. Let's just use another one. Let's move it above our flame that we like. Solo it. Then let's adjust the timing so it's the same. I'm holding Control and moving the media file inside the clip. That's extremely useful. And now we can unsolo this and see how it sounds like. When we compare those two, they sound exactly the same, but let's play back it again, but starting from here, and it sounds like this. And that one will sound like this. The exact same as before. So let us mute this one. If we want to keep a track for whatever reason to go back to it later, but we don't want to use it now and maybe never again, I have another custom script that lets me lock the track and mute it, or actually firstly mute it and then lock the track. And it's also my gesture. So if I move my mouse, if I hold my button, I move my mouse down, it mutes and locks the track. If I do the same action, it unlocks it. So I can just do it like this. Then I attach it to the track that I have this rendered sound in. And then I can close this. So it's basically gone, but we still have it if we need to go back to it later. Let's hear this third sound. Speed it up a bit. And let's do some balancing. We can try tilting everything because I want less lows and more highs. Maybe too much. I don't like how wide the base is on this. So we can take our low cut filter and make it slide only. It's better now. Okay, let's move it up more, and actually we can make a low shelf that is mid only. So you have more bass in the middle. So let's see how these free flames sound like now. Let's group them into a track. Let's put a multi-band compressor on them. What if we put another flanger on top? That's too much. Let's say this is okay. What if we put more saturation on top? Okay, let's hear it before and after if this is good or not. Okay, I think that's fine. It gives a bit more oomph to the sound. Let's hear it together with our first part. Actually, without first. And then after. Okay, so we can hear this is definitely too loud, and it also has like a bit too much low mid build up. Let's keep this like this. This track is too loud. I think I would like to accentuate this as an impact more. And what we can do is make a make a kind of a multi-band transient shaper, which is we do expand here, range is up 30, very fast attack on everything, and then a bit of a slower release. And let's see how that sounds like. Let's mute solo this first. And let's move the ratio to the max and knee to the 0. So there's no, so we only sounds that move it past for the threshold are being expanded. Okay, that might be fine. Let's hear how it sounds like without it. And with. And since this first part has a lot of sonic information and all the frequencies, we don't want them to be clashing together. So we can't route this into this track, Actually, let's name it first. Let's say this is build up, impact. Or maybe, let's keep it that way, yeah. Let's route this into this track's channels 3 and 4. And then always make sure that this route here is sending only the first and second channel to the master or the track above it, because later when we complete the full sound, we might want to grab all of the tracks that are being used and move them all up to a single folder that we can name, like the actual attack is going to be named in the game, and render this single track. And then if you don't do this, you might be also sending this signal again into this track. That we don't want that. But for now, let's not do it. And now that we have this track, you can, oh, it's sent twice. Let's delete this. So we can see that this track is being sent into channel 3 and 4 into this track. So we can put a compressor in here and then sidechain external. Let's move it up, and we can modulate the loudness of this track by this track, so that when this starts playing, this volume lowers down, so they don't clash together. They're not the same loudness, basically. Can you hear the difference? Yeah, it's pretty substantial. It's actually too much, I would say. Let's say this is okay. Okay, so what we have so far, we have this this whoosh, starting whoosh, and then we have the start of this flame buildup. This is going for too long. We can stop that here. So, oops. Okay, so this whole time we've been working on an unsaved project. Don't do that. I somehow forgot to save it at the beginning. So let's save our project. What I like to do is just name what we're doing. Let's say it's Lune, because that's how she's called. Fire attack, and then the date we start working on it. So it's this today. Always create subdirectory for the project, because otherwise, like, your files will just be randomly dropped in the folder that you made. And since we already started working on this project, we have plenty of media already inside. We need to copy all media into project directory. And let's save now. Okay, we're good. So now that we have our start whoosh sound and our small build-up impact, we need to make the actual build-up layer before the explosion. So let's look for more of a loop type of sound that is flames, let's say. Okay, we have this. This is like building up a bit. We could probably use this. It's long enough as well. This might be fun. Maybe this, but I'm not sure. This might be good as well. Okay, let's see what we have so far. We have these 4 sounds. Actually, let's not cut them yet, because we would probably like to speed them up, so that they rise in pitch, as we all love rising sounds that rise in pitch for build-ups, because it's, signaling that some energy is building up, it's going up, it's raising, it's being faster. So let's do that for every one of these. Actually, we can, I guess, have them all at the same point. Let's check what these sounds like. Maybe lower these for now. This one is a no-no. I like this. This too, apart from the beginning. We'll live with it. For now. Let's hear what this sounds like together. A bit too loud. What if we put them in the same folder and then do frequency shifting automation? First, for that, we need to touch the parameter that we want to automate and go parameter, show track envelope. No, sorry, parameter and show track envelope, the first one. Let's say we move it like that. A bit too far. Before, after, a bit more movement. What if we put a pitch shifter? Then I was glitching a bit. Let's change the grain size. Before, after. It's a subtle change, but it does help communicate the fact that we're building up energy. Maybe let's put some saturation. Actually, we can automate the drive too. And then we can compress it a bit because it's getting too loud. Let's use the multi-band one. Let's mute this and bring up the previous tracks. Start with this one. So I'm currently like pre-mixing the volume of the parts of the sound design to the gameplay we recorded. Actually, let's multi-band dynamics this too. Especially the low mids and bass here. Maybe if we bring out the highs more. Not the highs, actually, the high mids. Yeah, that's okay. And now let's hear with this part. I think that's fine. Let's just do it again. Maybe the pitch shifter is, frequency shifter is going a bit too high up. Yeah, that's way better. Let's, what if we put a automated filter here? Also, let's do the same thing as we did before, which is route this channel, as it's kind of important that we have the building up energy telling us when the explosion will happen. It's more important than the start of the build up, the impact that we already heard, and it's not really useful and necessary anymore. We can also put the fades here sooner. Let's route this again to 3 and 4. Get rid of the all. In multi-band compressor, you select the tracks, the bands, and then you go here to expert and external. I always do this. I recommend this also to whenever you use like a dynamics, EQ, anything. When you change the sound, you bring it down to below like 0, infinite, minus infinite, so you don't hear it. Play it back. And then bring it up again so we know what we're dealing with, what we're changing. So it sounds good, but I feel like the build-up finishes a bit too late. It's like basically finishes when the explosion happens. So let's move these back a bit. But now when we move these back, you see that these points don't move at all. So I found out a like a hack solution for this is that you can copy by holding Alt any of these tracks. Make sure it's the length of the first and the last envelope point. Bring the volume down to 0 of the track, even mute it. You don't really care what's here. But whenever you have an item on the track that has automation, if you have the, I think it's this move envelope points with media items selected. In this way, when you select all of these items, you can move them together with the envelope points. So let's move it back a bit. Select them all, move them back a bit, and see how that sounds like. Let's turn off the pitch shifter. No, it's not. It's not the pitch shifter's fault. Maybe it's saturation. I can hear this like a very sharp, clicky sound. It's probably just because of speeding up of maybe this. Yeah, I think it's this one. We will leave it for now. It's not about making a perfect sound design right now. It's just showing the process. So I have a shortcut for hiding all of these envelopes because sometimes, like you see here, it gets a bit too crowded. So I have a single button to expand it and hide it. Let's hide these items like this again. We can actually just hide them all for now. So we have 3 layers here. I think this sounds okay so far. And now we have the big explosion. We might want to add a volume envelope to this build-up part. And because these, you probably can't really hear them. Yeah, this is very quiet and just a little bit here. this is still pretty loud on the explosion part. So we can make a point somewhere like here, another one like somewhere here, and bring the volume down to 0. By holding Alt, you can make this curve here very nice. And thanks to this, we will have more space for our explosion sound. I would honestly, actually let's do it differently. Let's get rid of this envelope point. Select these, all of these. It's basically this whole part is a buildup of the explosion. So make a track for this. You can hide them all. Add, I have a shortcut for adding a volume envelope. So we can make the point here again and here, maybe here. Bring it down, curve it nicely. Let's hear this, how this sounds like now. So it basically becomes silent at this point when the explosion happens. So let's look for an explosion sound. Let's do just explosion. Let's see what it brings. It shows us. I like this for some reason, just like a double. This is very flamey. Let's look for a flame explosion. This is nice, like a nice whooshing accent. I have an idea. Why don't we take this sound, focus on it for now, and make an impact out of it by using Tonstrom Traveler. When you have this plugin by default, the shift parameter is like this, and this just makes whoosh, albeit very fast because I've brought up the speed to like max. So this is just making a whoosh for us. Maybe if I start from here. But if you set the shift to the left maximum and bring up the speed, we get an impact. And depending on where you put the cursor on, well, you get a different sound. Okay, so this explosion was nice, and we don't even need to record it. We can just select it up here, drag and drop on the same track. We can move this out of the way for now. Disable the bypass the traveler. Put this back on its place on the first flame of the explosion for now. Move it a bit closer to the first frame. We can normalize these, but mute them for now. See what that sounds like. This is a bit too high end now that I listen back to it. So I added this for like more movement, but in the end it brought up the high end way too much. So I will add another ProQ to bring it down. we will keep the movement, but let's bring down the highs. That's fair. Let's what if we add some saturation? That can be a fine, like an impact first sound. What if we add some OTT to this, just to check what it does? No, I don't like it here. Let's check out the other sounds like. Maybe here, OTT. Brings out the tail nicely. This is just a nice flame. It's not even really an explosion, but it's a great flame-ish accent to have play in the background because we are setting things on fire. It's set to the right a bit, I feel like. Let's bring it down to the middle. Get rid of some of that low med. Same here. Let's keep some of that wood though. Maybe that's fine. Let's hear what they sound like playing together. Okay, so let's hear them play back at the same time. Honestly, pretty good. Maybe let's move them back a bit. Let's move them to a single track, add some multi-band dynamics. What if we add OTT here? No, I don't dig it at all. Add some saturation maybe. Maybe what if we add some more? What if we add some phase mistress that is set up on the threshold of the sound? This sounds ridiculous now, but it does add a nice layer of like magic and some tonality, tonal movement in there. Not that bad, honestly. What about some flanger? Let's try the Melda one. Okay, that's more interesting already. Let's hear the whole thing. And we definitely need to fade out this one. This one too. Let's do maybe a tilt. Which one of these layers is that harsh? It's definitely the first one. I think that's better. Okay, we do have an explosion, but it's lacking a bit of an oomph, as I would call it. What if we add a boom enforcer here, which is going to give us that low-end hit? Let's send this track to the one below, channels 3 and 4. Remember to unroot this from master, only send 1 and 2 now. And let's add boom enforcer here. And the default setting, let's see if that does anything. And set it to sidechain. There it is. Can you hear the difference without it and with it? There's a slight attack in there now. We can try a maybe SFX sweetener, low bottom end. I can't hear it honestly. I'm not sure why. This kick seems fine. Okay, let's hear the explosion without it. And with it. Now that's way more powerful instantly. Brought it down in volume just a little bit. Make this into a track as well of its own, like a folder. Let's hear everything now together. What if I move this layer a bit forward? This might be better. Can't get the timing quite right, but let's leave it like this. And what if we add more saturation? I think the A style is the best. What if we add a transient shaper to this? Let's see. Is there a difference? A bit. Let's leave it like that. Okay, let's play back the whole clip now. Let's listen to our work. I think like this might be a bit too loud. Okay, let's leave it like that. This build up maybe too. Let's delete this. We don't need the silence here. This too. So we have made our sound. It's composed of 1 to 3 parts of the build-up and the explosion. So in this game, I mean, you can't really miss an attack like that. I mean, this one character dodged it, but let's say that we need to separate the whole build-up from the explosion, because for whatever reason you can miss, like here, dodge. So we have the main part and the explosion. How do we export it? The question is if we want to make this whole build-up part 3 different layers or just one whole sound. Because if we make 3 different layers, if we export it in 3 different variations, we will have like 9 different possible combinations of sound, which will like not be really repetitive. But this takes time. And if we were to have a multi-band processor here, for example, to like even the sound more like this. If we were to render these tracks differently, they wouldn't have the same amount of this compression applied like they do here, because now they're playing together, and when we render these separately, they won't be. But let's say that we want to keep... Actually, let's do it the more complex way. Let's render this first build-up part as 3 different layers and then the explosion. So what I would do now is I would create these regions by selecting all the items that create a single track. Select them, do the time selection from the first to the last moment of the items, create a region out of it, do the same thing for every other track. Okay, now that we have our regions, we can move them next to our sound design track. By clicking a region, holding Control and moving it next here, we move the region and copy every single thing that is below it. That's great. Delete what stuff we don't need. Let's keep only the first track items. Do the same thing for every other region. Okay. In this way, we have these separate regions for every part of the sound. So now we can, let's say we want to make 3 variations per layer. Again with Control, copy every region 2 times, so we have 3 regions. And then what I do is I select all the other items, hold Control, and move the files inside to bring us the next sounds. It's a bit tricky when you use this time stretching method, because you need to undo it and then redo it. Let's do it again. Let's start with this. It's a bit annoying, but well, that's what we have to do. And let's copy the position of the item, the wave inside here. So basically this peak of the whoosh sound is like below the 0 here. Let's do the same here, and let's do the same here. And let's make sure it's the same length as the original one. Well, before that, we need to put the time stretch here and here, move it up. Doesn't have to be perfectly identical. That's how we get variety. And let's do the same for these. Okay, we can see that this file has only 2 repeating sound sources. So let's use the first one again. And we need to check how that sounds like now. If they're similar enough, then that's great. We're done. I would say that they are. Maybe this track can be a bit lower in pitch. Let's leave it like that. And repeat the process for the next ones. Here we picked a sound file that has only 1 variation inside it, so it can't do much. But this one we might be able to switch up a bit. So I'm aiming to have the same dynamic of the sound as this one in the next files. Let's hear it back. There's a little variation. What you can use to vary it a bit more is to use another free script, which is LKC Variator. You can select these items and then randomize them by pitch. Click mutate. Let's see if that's different. Yeah, that's different enough. I have a custom script to just launch it, custom action to launch the script and close it. Let's move on to the next layer. Oh, this is going to be a lot of work. Let's leave it that way. Actually, we can do the same thing here, so we don't need to play with these time stretch markers. We can just mutate the pitch a bit. So that way they are a bit different, but we don't need to do that much work. And let's see these explosions. Okay, so these 2 files have only 1 variation. This one as well, but this one also only 1. Okay. So yeah, that's what you get for picking sound files that have only 1 variation in them. That's why I tend not to do it. That's why I tend to prefer files that have variations in them. But sometimes you just gotta deal with what you gotta deal with. Like some sound is just perfect the way it is and you really, really want to use it. You don't need infinite variations on every single sound. There are plenty of games, great sounding games that use the same sound effect every single time for a certain action. And it just sounds good. So you don't really need to variate it. It's nice, but it's not necessary. It's not like you have to do it every single time. So in this case, I can just delete this. I can close the variator script. And now we have ready regions to be rendered for our sound. So let's come up with a name of the attack animation that we are making the sound for. Let's call it sound effect underscore player underscore Lune underscore fire attack. That's the main, actually fire attack build up, because we can copy this, paste it here and call this explosion. And then I would copy this, because this is a parent track, to the layers that we made. And just paste it and just add an A, B, and C. Okay, now let's go to our Control Alt and R brings up the render to file window. And let's go to every sound designer's worthy, trusty and worthy region render matrix, all project regions. Make sure the tail is not selected unless you want it, like for a reverb or delay tail. I use the file name wildcard $track, which just names the file after the track. So that's why we name the tracks like this. Sounds are all in stereo. So let's keep the channels to stereo. Primary output format, let's do wave. I do 16-bit depth because it just saves some memory for the files. I don't feel like they need 24 bits of resolution. And let's go to the region matrix. In here, we select what tracks and what sounds we want to render by which regions and which tracks. So we want this first layer from the track 3 to be rendered by regions 5, 9, and 10. So we can select them, find the track 3, and these 3 regions, we make these dots here for them. Same here, track 7, regions 6, 11, and 12, 7, 6, 11, and 12. Then track 12 and regions 7, 13, and 14. And the last track 16 with the region 8. So in that way, we will render all of these sounds that we need in a single go, and we will get what we want. Hit render and render them. Okay, we have our sounds. We can play them back, listen to them. Great, we have our sound effect to put in the game, and in different layers too. So now we will move to FMOD to basically make an event to implement it in the game. Okay, so we're in FMOD. You have your project in your game. Let's see that we are not gonna go through FMOD project setup for your game now. It's just the sound design part and implementation. So you probably have this structure here of many different effects by now. So let's create an event default. Let's do 2D because this is like a stereo sound, and there's no Clair Obscur at least is a turn-based game. There's no, dynamic camera positioning movement while in combat. So we don't need any 3D real-time positioning. So let's do a 2D timeline. And let's go back to the Reaper project. And what I like to do is just copy the name and then name the event with event first, and then just paste the name. We need to obviously assign it to a bank. And let's duplicate this and name it, because we have an explosion. So let's name this one the build-up. So we have 2 events for a build-up and for the explosion. So let's do the build-up first. Let's make 3 tracks with Control T because we have 3 layers. And let's move them here. 3 A's to the first track, 3 B's to the second track, and 3 C's to the third track. Bring them up to the beginning and play back the sound. Okay, it's all over the place because right now we have started them at the same time, but it's not like that in our project. Let's go back and let's look how it is originally. So originally, this first one starts here, and the second one is delayed by, let's measure it, 400 milliseconds. So we can take these two and bring them to the 400 mark. And the second one starts 250-ish after this one. So it's going to be 650. Yep, 650. Let's play back the sound now. Okay, so it sounds good. And you can see that by default, when you bring the sounds in like that, it creates a random container that is shuffling through all of the sounds. So every single playback, we get different layers played together, like different variations of all these layers played together. So we get more variety. Never sounds quite the same, which is probably good. You can also randomize the pitch by holding Alt and just dragging up. You can randomize the pitch of the played back files. Let's do it by almost one semitone. Actually, you can make it do the thing for every container at the same time. You do have to be careful with this though, because pitch is basically the playback speed. So if you have a sound that is perfectly synchronized to the animation, by randomly changing the playback speed, it will be a bit too soon, a bit too late often. So you need to be careful. But I mean, this is pretty fine for me right now. So let's do the other sound, the explosion. And we have only one file here. It's not even, we're not going to have any variation here in terms of different files being played back. We don't have other layers being played back. It's just one sound file. It's going to be exact same every single time. We can add a bit of pitch variation. Let's see if that will, randomization, let's see if that will change anything. It sounds basically the same. Let's do it more drastically. It's not changing. I'm not sure why. Okay, it's working now. I'm not sure why it's so delicate right now, actually. It's a bit different, but let's keep it at a minimum. So right now is basically you have the finished sound. Now you would go into an engine and implement it to probably the animation, but maybe you can't do it to an animation, so you might attach it to a, like the explosion to the VFX of the explosion, and this build up to play it from some code like the button press. Maybe the animation starts a bit late, maybe there's delay, so you need to attach it to a button press for the attack, particular attack that you want to do. So yeah, there's many ways to go about that, but basically we went from the very first part of like pre-production, so like deciding what sound effect needs to be made, and then we gathered the material necessary for sound designing. And then in the production phase, we basically created the sound with different layers and variations. And now we went to implement it in our, we went to the middleware, which is like between implementation, because you also have the game engine. That's the very last step, but that's a different story for another time. So thank you, everyone. Thank you for watching. I hope this was useful, because whenever I see the sound design, sound redesign breakdowns, I always watch them, no matter how many I've seen. I always find them interesting. There's always something new to learn. I watch them every single time. But I've never seen anything quite like this. I feel like I never seen a full breakdown of a full cycle of making a sound for a game, and then they making different layers, exports, and putting them together in middleware, for example. So yeah, I hope this was worth a watch. Thank you for watching. And yeah, I hope this brought like some light to maybe some things, especially for beginner sound designers, and maybe shed some light on how I personally make sounds for my game. So yeah, check out SacriFire, wishlist it if you can. And yeah, thank you very much for watching.